Hello friends, 'tis I, your friendly neighborhood Saltcat. Today I'm coming at you with another Magic the Gathering related video. This is a deck tech for Sephara Sky's Blade. So she's really cool. This is going to be my first like mono white kind of deck, and I've seen a lot of people just do this as like fill the deck with a bunch of cheap flyers, but I kind of built this as a best of trademark, like kind of the best of like what white does in Commander, or at least my understanding of what I have available to me in my collection. Um, so so here's the boss lady. She is a 7 CMC, so 4 generic and 3 white mana. 7/7 legendary angel with flying and lifelink. She gives other creatures you control with flying indestructible. But the cool part is that you can pay 1 white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay her mana cost, so you can cheat her out of the command zone and avoid commander tax, because she is a hefty bitch, but like, you know, it'd be like that. So let's get into all of the things that I've done. Let's start out with our mana base. So, very simple indeed. I have 25 basic planes. I have an Ancient Den, which I wish was a Sarah's Sanctum. It's just an artifact land. It taps for a white. We have Temple of the False God, taps for 2. The Lotus Field, so it has hexproof and it enters the battlefield tapped, but you sack 2 lands and you can get 3 mana of any one color, which really helps out in this deck. We have a Secluded Steppe. You can cycle it. Myriad Landscape. You pay 2 and sack it, go find 2. So this is white doesn't have very like good ramp cards, especially not in my collection. So I just like, you know, I thought it would be an okay one. We have a Memorial to Glory. You can sack it to create tokens. Path of Ancestry lets you scry 1 if it shares a type. If you cast a creature that shares a type, I thought that I put more angels in here than I actually did. There's only like 9 angels, including Sephara herself, and then the rest of them go with like synergize with each other, which is fine. You have a Rogue's Passage, make your things unblockable, and then an Idyllic Range. You can put a 1/1 counter on something. So yeah, that's it for the mana base. As far as like just land. Now I'll get into the regular like artifacts and enchantments that we have. So I have a Soul Ring. I have an Archaeomancer's map for the ramp. So when it enters the battlefield, I get 2 basic planes card. I reveal them, put them into my hand, and then shuffle my library. And then when a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player controls more lands than then I can put a land card from my hand onto the battlefield. So that it just helps white keep up the pace. I have a Book of Exalted Deeds, so it makes angel tokens, and then I can essentially make a platinum angel. So I can exile it, put a counter on it, and it has I can't lose the game, and my opponents can win the game, which is awesome. I have a Burnished Heart again for the ramp. Same thing with a Solemn Simulacrum. 2 classic cards, but then a lot of people don't like this card. I love this card. So it's Coveted Jewel. It really helps out white. It taps for 3 mana of any one color, but whenever it enters the battlefield, you get to draw 3 cards. And the downside of it is it kind of works like the Monarch mechanic. So if you hit an opponent, then they gain control of it. They get to draw 3 cards, and then they have a mana rock that taps for 3. But it just adds like another like competitive kind of nature to the rest of the game, and it kind of speeds play up. But I quite like it. Let's see, we have our regular enchantments. So I've got Sigarda's Aid. You can cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash, and whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you can attach it to target creature you control. So one of the sub-themes that I went with in this deck is auras and equipments. So we will move on to those right after I finish up with these. Another sub-theme that I have is life gain, so I have Cleric class to help with that. So if you would gain life, you would gain that life +1. Whenever you gain life, level 2, you can gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, and then when it becomes level 3, I can return a creature card from my graveyard to the battlefield. There's also a little bit of recursion in here, more recursion than I thought that I initially put in, actually. So, it's pretty good for white, actually. And then we have a Ghostly Prison, so creatures can attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each attacking creature. So, just good. I have a Teleportation Circle, so at the beginning of my end step, I exile up to 1 target artifact or creature I control and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So I can flicker shit, like it works with Coveted Jewel, it works with a lot of the enter the battlefield triggers that I've stacked in this deck. It's just a pretty good card. I have Court of Grace, so you become the Monarch, and at the beginning of your upkeep create a white spirit creature token with flying, but if you're the Monarch, you get Angels. Smothering Tithe, whenever an opponent draws a card, if they pay 2, then whatever, but if they don't pay 2, then I get a treasure token. That's every time they draw a card, so it's wonderful. Much better than Monologue Tax. Then we have Sigil of the Empty Throne. Whenever I cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 angel. So, all the angels. All these angels. Alright, now we'll get into the auras and enchantments. So, auras. I've got Faith's Fetters. So life gain, I gain 4 life, and then enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and they can't activate their abilities unless they are mana abilities, so just useful. I have Sage's Reverie. When it enters the battlefield, I draw a card for each aura and enchantment, or no, for each, just aura. For each aura I control that's attached to a creature, and then it gets 1/1 for each aura I control that's attached to a creature. So, you know, card draw, and buffin'. I have On Sarah's Wings, so it's a legendary enchantment. It gets, it gives things legendary, +1/1 flying, vigilance, and lifelink, which is awesome. I have Cage of Hands, which it can't attack or block, but the cool thing is that I can pay 1 and a white to return it to my hand, so I can just keep casting this over and over again to trigger anything that would trigger whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield. I have Timely Ward. It gives things indestructible, and I can cast it as though it had flash if it targets a commander. And she already gives things indestructible, but she herself is not indestructible, so we can fix that. I have All That Glitters. Gets +1/1 for each artifact and enchantment I control. Darksteel Mutation. It's like Frogify, but better. Because they turn into a 0/1 bug with indestructible, so unless they can just bounce it to their hand, there's not really a lot of ways they can deal with that. They can exile it, but whatever. And I have Rune of Sustenance. I like the runes a lot. You can enchant creatures, you can enchant... it just says enchant permanent, so if you wanted to, you can enchant another enchantment, but it's really for... oh, and you also draw a card. But if you... you can attach it to a creature or an equipment, and it will give it lifelink, or it will give the equipment the ability of giving the creature lifelink, which is really dope. Then we have Angelic Gift. You also draw a card when it comes in, and it gives things flying. And then I have Spectral Steel. So it gives things 2+2/2, and you can pay 1 and a white to exile it and return another target or an equipment or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. So just a few enchantments. And then equipments, all of these are CMC 3 or less, which is awesome. So I have a Haunted Cloak. Equip 1, gets Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. Fire Shrieker, equip 2, gives things Double Strike. Loxodon Warhammer, gives things +3/+0, Trample, and Lifelink. Rogue's Gloves lets me draw cards whenever I hit somebody with it. Gold Vein Pick, it gives things +1/1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, then you can create a treasure token. I have a Blackblade Reforged, gets +1/1 for each land you control, equip legendary 3 or an equip of 7. I have Swiftfoot Boots, equip 1, equip creature has hexproof and haste. Mask of Avacyn, it gets +1/2 and hexproof, an equip cost of 3, and then Explorer's Scope is really dope. Whenever a equipped creature attacks, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. So this helps you out in white a lot because you're not drawing a lot of cards. So by getting all the lands out of your deck, then you're getting to the meat of your deck. And this is on attack trigger too. So you don't have to deal combat damage to activate it. And it only costs 1, and it costs 1 to equip. So you can play and equip this on turn 2 if you, like, you know, got a little Healer's Hawk out on turn 1. And you can just start the value train from there. Alright, so what are we going to equip and enchant? Let's look at our creatures. So I have all of our... I separated the angels, and this is how I found out that I did not put as many angels in here as I thought I did, so let's just go with them first. We have an Emiria Shepherd. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, I can return target non-land permanent card from my graveyard to my hand, but if that land is a plains, I can return it to the battlefield instead. So that's really nice. It's like Sun Titan, but better. I do have a Sun Titan in here also, though. We'll get to that later. We have a Chroma, Vision of Ixidor, so it has Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample. At the beginning of each combat until end of turn, each other creature you control gets +1/+1 if it has Flying, and so on if it has First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, it's keywords. You know, everything flies, and a lot of things do other stuff too, so. Then I have Sarah's Guardian. Flying, Vigilance gives other things Vigilance. Valkyrie Harbinger. Flying, Lifelink. At the beginning of each end step, if I gain 4 or more life, then I create a 4/4 white angel with Flying and Vigilance, which is really dope. I have a Karmic Guide, so I can enter the battlefield. When it enters the battlefield, I can return target creature card from my graveyard to the battlefield. And it has protection from black, which is always good. Emiria Angel, landfall, but whenever a land enters the battlefield, I get 1/1 birds. Inspiring Overseer. It's a really cheap angel, but when it enters the battlefield, I gain a life and draw a card, which is awesome. And then I have Angel of Vitality, and it is flying. If you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead, and it gets +2/2 as long as you have 25 or more life. So dims to angels. And then let's go with our guys. So we're gonna do the beefy boys first, and then everything has been from highest to lowest CMC so far, so you know this is no exception. We have a Silent Sentinel, so whenever it attacks, I can return target enchantment card from my graveyard to the battlefield. Archon of Coronation makes you the Monarch. As long as you're the Monarch, damage doesn't cause you to lose life. Sun Titan, when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you can return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. We have a Ravelark. So when it leaves the battlefield, I can return 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from my graveyard to the battlefield. This combos with Karmic Guide. So you can do cool stuff. And you have Audric, Lunarch Marshal, at the beginning of combat. They give he lets other creatures get other like keyword abilities, so he combos with a Chroma really well. Because a Chroma has all that shit. And he'll just like give it to everyone, and then she'll give everybody +1/1 until end of turn for all of the things. We have a Core Cartographer. When it enters the battlefield, I can search my library for a Plains card, put it on the battlefield tapped. Always good, and it's an ETB trigger, so I can flicker that with either Ravelark or my Teleportation Circle. We have an Armored Skyhunter. So whenever he attacks, I can look at the top 6 of my library and put an R equipment card from among them onto the battlefield. If an equipment is put onto the battlefield, I may attach it to a creature, and then I put the rest of the cards on the bottom. So he's cool, helps us hunt for things. I have a Rumor Gatherer, so whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, I scry one. If it's the second time that this is resolved this turn, then I get to draw a card instead, so card draw for white. Also, I'm going to be making tokens, playing things, reducing costs of things. It's going to be great. Then we have a Moonblessed Cleric. So when it enters the battlefield, I can search my library for an enchantment card, reveal it, and then shuffle it, put it on top. So it acts like an Enlightened Tutor, essentially. And the art's pretty. We have Danitha Capuchin, Paragon. So she has First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, and she reduces or an equipment spells by 1 colorless mana. We have an Aerial Responder, just flying, Vigilance, Lifelink, but it only costs 1 and 2 white. And it's also power 2. Then I have a Starnheim Aspirant. This is important because she reduces the angel spells by 2. So we can get our big beefy angels out a lot faster. Then we have Starnheim Corsair, and it artifacted enchantment spells I cast 1 less to cast. So lots of cost reducing. Then I have a SRAM, so whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, you draw a card. So I have a bunch of shit that goes with that. But this is on cast, it's not enter the battlefield, so you can't like flicker stuff with SRAM and have it just be cool. But that's why Cage of Hands is lit, because you can return it to your hand so you can cast it again. Then we have Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. He's a legendary enchantment creature, and his toughness is equal to our devotion to white, and when another creature I control enters the battlefield or dies, I gain a life. Impassioned Orator, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, I gain a life. And then here's our cheapy flyer boys. So we have Cartographer's Hawk. When he deals combat damage to a player who controls more lands than me, you return it to your hand, and if you do, you can search your library for a plains card and put it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So just good. Healer's Hawk, Flying Lifelink, cost 1, and Battlefield Raptor, Flying First Strike, cost 1. And then the last bit, we have, I think there's only 6, and there are instants and sorceries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Okay, cool. So since Sephara makes everything indestructible, I'm running 2 board wipes. So if we make her indestructible, then we can just fuck up everybody else's board and not worry about ours. So I have Route. It costs 5, so 3 and 2 white, but if you pay 2 more to cast it, then you can pay it as though it had flash, and it destroys all creatures and they can't be regenerated. Again, doesn't affect us. We have Doomscar, so you can foretell this, and the reason that I included these 2 board wipes specifically, I didn't want to just go board wipe tribal with this. I've seen that too. I think that honestly that's a boring way to play. When I play Magic, I want to play Magic. I want to cast spells, and I want everybody else to cast spells too. The reason I chose Route and Doomscar is because you can technically play them both at instant speed. So with this one you have to pay 2 more to cast it, but with this one you can just foretell it. So foretell is you exile it face down for 2 mana, and then you pay its foretell cost later. And you can do that at instant speed, and this is also a destroy all creatures. And it only costs 3 whenever you do it like that, so it takes a 5 mana spell and a 5 mana sorcery and turns it into a 3 mana instant, which is insane. We've got True Love's Kiss, so exile target artifact or enchantment, draw cards, targeted removal, but it helps you draw cards. That's what the important thing is. We have Revitalize, so you gain 3 life and draw a card. So life gain, card draw, we're doing all the things that we need to be doing. And then we have a little bit of utility with Dawn Charm, one of my favorite cards in white, so it costs 2 mana, 1 in a white. You choose 1. You can either prevent all combat damage that would be dealt, you can regenerate a creature, or you can counter target spell that targets you. Almost always we're going to be preventing the combat damage that would be dealt this turn. This is a good way to save your face from being smacked because you can't put a deflecting palm in mono white. And then of course we have Swords to Plowshares. So exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. Super nice way to get rid of a thing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I have not been able to test this deck out yet, but you know, goldfishing it by myself, like playing solitaire, it seems like it's pretty decent, and it always performs better than I think it's going to, but it's never with like the method. Like I have always, like the last like 5 times that I've played it, I've hardcast Sephara. I've hardcast her on like turn 4, but I wanna get that sweet pay and untap, like, or pay and tap the 4. So you know, that's the goal that I have in mind with this deck. I need to put more angels in here. I need 1-drop angels and 2-drop angels, but it's pretty solid so far. It seems fun. It has like shenanigans, so this is like my best of white shenanigans deck with one of the best commanders for mono white, I believe. But yeah, I run a gig on Spell Table called Saltcat's Trap House. We have a Discord server. I'll like link that or something, but I have not been able to play lately. So whenever I get that back up and running, then you guys can play Magic with me anytime that you want to, because it's a way to play paper Magic online. Spell Table is incredible. But until then, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed my deck.